this is pulling up right now. What? Why do I have to select all the images with a bus? Why can't I just go to the page? Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 173 of the Love in Stitches podcast. It is a gorgeous sunny day here in New York City. I think spring may be arriving. I don't want to jinx it. It is getting towards the end of March and our temperature is warming up. Yesterday when I walked to Pilates, I walked to Pilates like 3 or 4 times a week. It's a 20-minute walk and normally I have my hat on and my gloves on and I'm freezing, and for the first time in a while, no hat, no gloves, just a jacket, actually just a sweatshirt, and it was amazing. I'm filming a little bit earlier than normal today, and so the sun is like right here, so hopefully as it moves a little bit I can raise up the shades, get a little more light in here. Toaster is also joining me today. I know somebody said they missed Toaster. He is usually right there on the bed. I wish I could get him to come into this part. Maybe I'll start setting up his blanket there and he'll come over there. Okay, I am wearing the Summer Sorrel by Wool and Pine Designs. I knit this a couple of years ago after I got to New York City, because this is all New York City yarn from Yarn Over New York. I'll link the project page down below. It came out super, super cute. I added in some A-line shaping to it and realized that I really didn't need it, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. And I might have shortened the sleeves. I don't remember, but hopefully it's all in the project page that I'm going to include. One last thing, we have started adding chapters to the podcast. Thank you for your lovely suggestion to do that. So what that means is that you will see down on the player bar below where you can move around to different segments of the podcast. Hopefully this will be very useful if you're coming back into the podcast after having already started it, or maybe you're coming back to this podcast later on looking for something specific. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but just wanted to let you know that that is now going to be on our podcast from now on. They've been getting really long, so I feel like it needs that to kind of break things up. Okay, I have so much to show you today. I have an almost finished item. I have a brand new project, so let's just dive right in. First things first. I tried so hard to finish this sweater for this podcast. I wanted to get it done and have it ready and show it to you like blocked and everything. I also spent the last week in Nashville with my parents, so I had a lot more knitting time. I got a ton of knitting done on this, but it's not finished quite yet. I kind of held back a little bit on the end, and I'm going to explain why. But as far as my schedule of like knitting this, I'm way ahead of where I wanted to be. All of last week, I was just focused on finishing the second sleeve, and then I planned for this week to be about 3.5 inches on the body, and next week to be another 3.5 inches. But I will show you that I have already reached well ahead of that. Oh my gosh, hold on. Got all these little bits of yarn falling out here. Okay, let's talk about the pattern first before I get any more into it. So this sweater is the Citrine Light by Emily Green, and you can see I have made so much progress. Okay, come on, Light, work with me here. It is a beautiful sweater with lovely shoulder details and lovely twisted rib, and it's looking so good in this yarn that I am using. It is a Magpie and Spin Cycle dyed in the skein, and I am using the color Fior de Latte. Now, originally I had 4 skeins of this yarn, and just last week I got a 5th skein. I ordered a 5th skein and wanted to make sure it seamlessly blended into the rest of the sweater. So that was my first order of business last week. So I did that. I put the new skein into the body. I did a little bit of helical knitting with some of the other yarns, and it looks totally fine and looks great. So on the body last week, and I've got lots of clicking because I have my needles on little stoppers here. They're wooden stoppers, and so they're clicking together. But on the body this last week, I have gone from this cute little dinosaur Bananasaurus split. I did a few inches of the stockinette and a few inches of ribbing, so really, really pleased with that progress. I'm gonna come back to that. And then my other bit of knitting that I did was the second sleeve. So from right here on my pizza, hold on, dessert pizza, I don't remember where this one's from. This might also be from the same maker as the Bananasaurus split, which is Della Dino. So I did a whole bunch of sleeve knitting and that's done. So this I used my 4th skein for my original set of 4. So I don't know why, I feel like this is helpful to know like how much yarn is a sweater going to use. And of course, every sweater is going to be different. Every size is going to be different. Every yarn weight is going to be different. And these skeins are 75 grams, not 100 grams. So they have 300 yards in them. So I used one, I think about to here, 1 skein of yarn, my 2nd skein of yarn, I think it blends in a little bit here. And then let's say 3 for the sleeve, 4, and then the little leftover bits of the sleeve I also put into here, and then this is 5. So I guess like percentages wise, you know, you have to consider that sleeves are going to use quite a bit of yarn. They're quite a bit of knitting, especially when it's twisted rib like this, which used a lot of yarn. So this is all going really, really well. You may be wondering, why didn't I just bind off and finish this thing? So let me take you back a couple of days to where I was getting close to starting the ribbing. So the sweater, I think it has you go until 3 inches. The ribbing is supposed to be 3 inches long at the bottom. So it says go to 3 inches less than your desired total length. So I wanted to try it on at that point and see, am I at 3 inches less than my desired total length? Where's the ribbing gonna land? So I forgot my tubing, my tried-on tubing on my trip. I'm annoyed with myself, but what I did instead is I put my yarn, or my sweater, on 2 32-inch cords and 2 32-inch needles. Like I hooked up the needles to here. And I did that trick, I'm gonna try to explain, this is a little confusing, but I did that trick basically where I put my needle size that I needed to be working with on what will be the right hand needle, and then one size smaller on the needle that's going to feed the stitches. And since you're working in the round with this two circular needles method, you can do that. You can have the left hand needle, the feeder needle that feeds all the stitches, always be that smaller needle, and then your right hand needle will always be the same. It will always come around and be the same, be that working needle. That way I could create 2 separate circular needles from my interchangeable set. So one side had a 3 and a 4, and then the other side had also a 3 and a 4, but I always worked with the 4. Hopefully that makes sense. So I set that up like that mostly so I could try it on. So here's what it looked like when it was on the 2 circular needles, just like laying flat. I wanted to get a good measurement there. And when I measured it, when it was still on the 24-inch circular needle, I thought I was at 12 inches. But when I actually laid it out flat, I could see I had only knit 11 inches on the body. I always put, from experience now, whenever I divide for the armholes, I find it really hard to measure from an armhole. So instead, on that same row, I go ahead and put a light bulb stitch marker in that same row in the body. So that gives me a lot more of a flat area to measure from the armhole. I just find that so much easier. Sometimes I'll put it on the front, front and the back. You can see that. So I had only 11 inches, but I decided to try it on anyway. So here's a picture of me trying it on, seeing like, okay, how much longer do I want to go on this part that has the stockinette in the front and the back before I start my ribbing? And I decided I needed 1 more inch. My worry was, what if this thing grows and I still want the 3 inches of ribbing? So then I would need to rip out all my ribbing, take 1 inch back on the stockinette, and then start the ribbing earlier. I don't know, I was just getting all in my head about making the decision on that. But my mom kind of helped me. She said, well, where do you want the ribbing to start? Do you want it to start at like your button band on your pants? And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense, I think, right? I don't know. So I ended up doing 1 more inch of ribbing. And so I think I had 12 total inches from the underarm, also where that marker is. I know it's so hard to see. so bright. From that marker, which is the underarm, down to where I started the ribbing is 12 inches. And that was gonna leave me 3 inches for the rib, or 15 inches in total, which on my torso, 15 inches from the underarm is around about where I wanna be for a full length sweater. So I thought, great, this is going awesome. And then I started to do the rib. Now, when you do the rib, in a lot of sweater patterns, you don't do a 3-inch ribbing. It may be 1 inch or 2 inches. You typically don't change your stitch count and you go down in needle size. But this sweater is designed to really have the rib be part of the entire pattern. So, you know, it's got rib on the sleeves, it's got rib on the like side panel of the body all the way down, which is so pretty. So what I hadn't factored in is that there's actually an increase in the pattern right before you start the final ribbing. It's so that the rib doesn't like flare out or come in too much or do anything wacky, and you keep the same needle size. So after I did that, I had a lot more stitches. I think my stitch count increased by like 25% or something like that. So quite a significant number. And then my yarn started to dwindle down and my worry about having my sweater be too long started to turn into a worry about having my sweater be too short. So I went as far as I felt like I could, and I tried on the sweater again. So here's my kind of final try on with the ribbing. And I wanted to I was a little discouraged. So like that night I put the sweater away and decided I would make a decision in the morning. And in the morning I was thinking, oh man, it would be really nice to just go ahead and bind this thing off, block it, and bring it home with me back to New York City all finished. The thing about this bind off is that it is a tubular bind off, which is a sewn bind off. It takes quite a bit of time, and it's really not fast to undo. It actually takes more time to take out than it does to do it. And so if I did go ahead and bind it off, block the sweater, and then it turned out to be either too short or too long, I would not feel very encouraged to then pick out that tubular bind off. So with all of that in mind, I decided to just wait until I got back here to New York City so that I could get the try it on tubing that I had forgotten, throw it onto all these live stitches, and give it another block before I decide to bind it off. I hope that makes sense. I try to capture like all the little decisions that go into our knitting and crochet can be a lot, and I just find that like I'm glad that I took a break from this sweater over the last couple of days and didn't make a rush decision, because in the past when I've made a decision out of either excitement or like rushing or just wanting to get it done or feeling like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna work, let me just finish it anyway, I've regretted it or just not been 100% happy. And I've put so much work into the sweater that I feel like it would be worth it to be 100% happy with it. So here's what I'm working with. I've got about 2 inches instead of 3 inches of rib on the bottom. So my question is, would I be happier with, oh, there's lots of ways to go. There's so many ways to go with this. I need to block it. How do I explain this? I'm sorry, the thoughts are still like in my head. I've let them go for a few days and now I'm like, wait, I need to think about this. So my next step is to try it on tubing and block this thing. It's kind of like a mid-project block, but once I do the bind off on it, if everything works out and I like the length and I like how the length of ribbing looks and I want it to look balanced, then I'll just go ahead and do a tubular bind off, and I won't re-block it at the moment. I don't think it's gonna need it just for the cast on. I could maybe spritz it with a little bit of water on the bottom. My worry is that this 2 inches of ribbing is not gonna look balanced, that I may be happier with 3 inches of ribbing. In that case, I have a couple options. I could, if I feel like the sweater is gonna be long enough, I could pull back a couple of inches and then start my ribbing earlier. Of course, that's gonna take quite a few hours of work, but if it's gonna make the sweater look better, that would work. I will have to be really careful with it because the ribbing has more stitches and takes more yarn than the stockinette. So just pulling back an inch of stockinette is not going to give me another inch of ribbing. So I have to really weigh what's going to be worth it. Best case scenario is it just blocks out and it looks great and I love it and I bind it off. My other option could be if I want to lengthen the rib and the length of the sweater, is maybe start looking around for anyone on Ravelry who has this yarn left over in their stash. I'm estimating that I would need about 25 grams, so that's not an insignificant amount. It's about a third of a full skein of this yarn. So I am considering it. I don't know yet. I need to block it first. I don't know what I need until I block it. That's why I needed to step away, get out of that mode of like, let's just get it finished. Because my thought was, oh, if I just bind it off, like, or what's the point of waiting? Because I don't have any more yarn. I should just bind it off. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. And then I'm like, no, Natalie, you could make some changes. You could get more yarn, yada, yada. So I'm gonna wait on it. So I do have, of this skein, I have about this much yarn left. It's probably a gram or two. The other thing is I had trouble figuring out how many rows I could do because I didn't have my yarn scale. And my parents had a kitchen scale, but it only measured in full grams. And I really needed a scale that could measure like 1.5 grams or whatever. So I knew how many grams each row took, because I really could go to the end of this, even though I need yarn for my bind off. I actually still have my swatch and it's intact. So if I needed to, I could get maybe one more row out of this. I don't know if it's worth it or not. And then I could pull this out and use this yarn to do the tubular bind off. So I have some options. I think that I might pull this out anyway. And normally when I pull yarn out, I just re-knit it even in its crinkly little state. But I think for a tubular bind off, I would appreciate it to be less curly. And so I may pull this out and like soak it as well and let it kind of relax to make it easier to sew with. I also have this, but I don't really know if that's gonna do me much good. So I really don't have a lot of yarn left. I mean, I have knit to the very end. So let's put that picture up one more time of me trying it on. You can let me know what you think about the fit and everything. I'm obviously going to try it on again once I get it all blocked, and it could grow. My sleeves grew about 1/2 inch, so it's not unreasonable to think that my sweater may grow an inch or so. And then in that case, it's gonna be more about, do I like that I have 2 inches of ribbing, or do I wish that it was 3 inches? It's actually getting quite warm in here today, which is so wild. I haven't felt hot doing a podcast in a while, but I'm kind of tempted to put shorts on with my sweater. It's crazy how the weather can change so fast. But despite the weather change, I'm still working on winter knits. I want to get my winter knits finished, even if I don't end up wearing them until the next season. I mean, it's totally fine. And we're gonna have cold days anyway. So I am trucking along on my next project here, which is a Musselburgh by Isolde Teague. I haven't done a whole lot of knitting on this week. From my little cake marker, I have worked a couple of inches, but I have started the next section, which is rib. So for this hat, which, just a quick overview, if you have not seen a Musselburgh before, maybe if you're brand new to my podcast or you just have missed a few episodes, because I have been making Musselburgh hats since September. I've made so many of them. But it is a kind of an oblong, like football shaped hat where you basically knit 2 hats end to end from one crown to the other, and then you take one and put it inside the other and it makes a double layered hat. I also like to make mine long enough that they fold up. I just find that I wear the ones that are longer and that fold up more than mine that doesn't fold up. I don't think that's part of the original pattern, is it? I don't remember now, but that's how I've been making mine for the last several ones that I've made. So with this one, I'm trying something different. I am doing a rib in the middle part of the hat. So you can see, basically I have one hat almost completely knit from the crown to the stockinette to the ribbed brim, which will fold up. But I want to make this rib brim double because it needs to be able to fold up ribbed on either side. So the middle is going to be 6 inches. That'll give me a 3-inch brim on both sides of the hat. And then this portion here, from when the crown increases end to when I started the rib brim, is 6.5 inches. I think this one's more like 7. I accidentally just knit a little too long because I was just knitting away on it, and then I got out my tape measure and I was like, I gotta start the ribbing right now or I'm gonna run out of yarn. Because one thing you want to make sure if you're using the same ball of yarn is that you have enough for both sides, unless of course you want to make the other side a different color or end the hat with a different color, because it will be inside and won't matter, whatever you want to do. So that's what I'm experimenting with this one. This was not my own idea. I did start doing, I've done a couple where I've done rib on the entire one side of the hat, and then one of our Love and Stitches members made a hat where she just did the rib in the middle, and I thought that is brilliant. So I am borrowing that idea from somebody else, and I've already seen a couple of you say that you're going to try the same thing. So this is what's great about sharing our ideas about knitting, is now we all have a like work smarter not harder way to get this ribbed brim. So I'm very excited about it, and that's really all there is to say. Oh wait, the yarn, of course. This yarn is from the Little Wolf Knits in her Sunfish base. It is a custom colorway that we did for Love and Stitches members this past quarter called Love and Speckles. So it's a very special yarn, and I want to use as much of it as possible. So this hat is just really gonna be my out and about, when I need something simple kind of knitting. But I've actually started a new project that's also a very simple, easy knit, not quite as portable. So I'm really excited. I'm ready. I just want to talk about that project. So let's go to it next. This bag is back, and you know what that means? It means that another scrappy project has been started. I have already talked about this project or this pattern that I'm using, but I have actually started, and I'm so excited about it already. So the yarn that I'm using, let me start there. I kind of want to set up this project because it's brand new, and I want to explain how special it is and everything that I am doing with it. So this yarn is from Fangirl Fibers. It is a Disney yarn advent calendar. I've got 24 20-gram minis, and this was a advent calendar that I can't remember if I purchased it or if Emily gave it to me in 2021, but I know it's from 2021, and I love working with Fangirl Fibers yarn. So I have 2 Fangirl Fibers advents actually. Or do I have 3? No, I used one in 2022. I have another one sitting over there on my yarn shelf that I need to use here in the next couple of months. So this year is my year of working with all of my scraps, which are leftover yarns, but also all of my mini skeins. So I'm just using the term scrap-free 2023. So that's what I mean when I say scraps. Anything basically that's not a full like 100-gram skein of yarn is a scrap. that swatch was getting in my way. Okay, so this project, it started out as I just wanted to work with this yarn from March to April. And I gave myself March to April instead of 1 month like I have for my past scrappy projects, because I wanted to knit with this yarn. And if I first picked out a shawl, and that just wasn't seeming like the right project at the time. I was trying to avoid doing blankets because I've made so many blankets, but when I really thought about it, all I wanted was a blanket and just something that I could cuddle up with, enjoy, or like lay over a chair and enjoy. I mean, the last blanket that I finished, Toaster is really, really excited about. This blanket is not for Toaster. That one is still coming, but I cannot wait to make this blanket for me. I love Disney, and I love all the colors that are in this advent. They are just absolutely beautiful. So a couple weeks ago, Kent and I got all of the yarn out for this advent calendar, and we made a plan for this blanket. So here is the photo here. You're going to see the yarns all laid out, how they're going to be in this blanket, and I'll explain why they're kind of in quadrants in just a second. So this blanket pattern is called Quadrophenia by K.F. Jones. I had not looked into the pattern until I started it this week, and what's really cool is that Kay also suggests for you to kind of put your colors together in piles of 4 and then work them from the center out, which is exactly what Kent and I did when planning out the colors for the blanket, which is why you saw the yarns kind of laid in groups of 4, but then going out like this. So I think that's really cool that we kind of understood that and how to do it and like planned that way. It was really neat to see that affirmed, I guess, in the pattern. So I guess this is a plug to read your patterns first, and it may save you some mental energy. But it all worked out anyway. So the way that we organized this, and I'm really glad I had Kent's help, because I was just looking at color. I wanted all my favorite colors to be in the center of the blanket because those sections were the widest. They start the narrowest, they have the fewest number of stitches, and therefore they have the most rows. So I feel like you kind of see them the most. So I wanted my favorite colors to be in the very center. So I put a lot of pinks and purples there. And then I kind of worked my way around all of the yarns, arranging them in sets of 4 that would balance each other so that in the blanket it would look balanced. So my set of 4 yarns would then end up being in 4 different quadrants in the same stripe. So they may be stripe number 2, so they would be a pile of 4 together, and then they would be like quadrant A, stripe 2, quadrant B, stripe 2, quadrant 3, C, stripe 2, quadrant D, stripe 2. And I did name them this because that's how I actually got my yarn organized. So I have started the blanket. And here's the tag. Each of these yarns still had tags that I put on them, and then I labeled them. Like here's quadrant A, stripe 1. And so I've just been working on the first quadrant this week. So let me share it with you. Ta-da! It kind of just looks like a little bandana right now. Isn't it so cute? So imagine this as the center of the blanket. It's knit in 4 quadrants. Each quadrant has 6 colors, 24 colors in total, and then you sew them together. I'll admit I'm not super excited that I have to seam this blanket, but to be honest, it's not going to be a hard task to seam it. It will have, 4 seams, I guess? And it will be very consistent. Like I think what I don't like about seaming is when you have to attach a sleeve to a body and there's like increases and decreases and all this mess. There are increases, of course, because it's a triangle, but it will be very consistent and it should be very easy to do. And also there's a tutorial that I need to go watch that is included in the pattern for that. So the pattern is a really simple one. It is really, really great for just hanging out, TV watching, all of that. You start in the middle and then you increase. And then every time you change colors, you do a really simple little fun slip stitch, which is really, really nice. So Kay said she designed this pattern as a way to use your mini skeins to the very end. She wanted something that you didn't have to have like 10 grams of leftovers, which I can appreciate. So the way that she suggests doing it is you weigh your yarns. I was weighing mine this morning and I have about 2 grams left here. And I know that I need 2 grams in order to complete 2 rows. So that should get me to the end of this second color here. So I have moved through almost 2 colors in my first quadrant. So I figured every week it would be fun just to share with you the colors that I'm knitting, and that will be it. Then these will go away. I love that I have saved these so that I know what the colors are, but after I knit with them, I'm not gonna like keep them, if that makes sense. I will just know that it's all Disney and love that. So this first one is called Mini Ears, and you can see I'm not going in order of the Advent. This was the 21st color in the Advent, but in the order that I selected. And then this one is called Tiki Room, and it's really, really fun. So each stripe will get a little bit narrower, which is fine, but I am keeping track of how each quadrant or how each section is going. So for the first one, I had 95 stitches before I switched to my second color. For this one, I'm probably going to switch over to counting rows because that's going to be a lot easier to do. I think I'm going to have something like 18 garter ridges. So I'll be putting that into my project notes. These numbers are also in the pattern, but they're not exact. Like she explains that, you know, depending on your yarn and your yardage, because you could totally do this with a different weight of yarn. You just want to keep track for yourself, like how many stitches, or if you want to measure in how many rows. So I don't feel like that's sharing too much of the pattern. It is a paid for pattern, and I do recommend buying it because it has a lot of useful information in there for how to do everything. So I'm really, really excited about it. So I started to think about my goal for this yarn originally, like when I planned all my scrappy projects in January, was to finish using this yarn by the end of April. It's currently March 22nd or something like that. So we're in the second to last week of March. March is like 500 days long or something. I keep thinking this is the last week of March. Then the next week this is the last week of March. I'm like, it's still not the last week of March. It's such a long month. But second to last week of March. So I have 6 weeks remaining until the end of April. So I started to think, what would be reasonable for me to knit each week on this project? How many colors could I do? There's 24 total colors. So then I just started to play with the math. If I did 2 colors per week, it would take me 12 weeks, because 24 divided by 2, 12 weeks. That would be 3 months. If I did 3 colors per week, 24 divided by 3 is 8. It would take me 8 weeks or 2 months. If I did 4 colors per week, 24 divided by 4 is 6. It would take me 6 weeks, which would be the end of April, which is my goal. So I originally planned to like start this project right at the beginning of March. It just wasn't good timing. We were getting back from being in Austin for the Hill Country Weavers retreat. There's a lot of other things going on that it just wasn't a good time to start a new project. I wanted to finish my Citrine Light sweater. So again, the timing wasn't right. So I started it 2 days ago on Monday, on the 20th of March, and that's okay. But I still would like to finish it by the end of April because I have this plan for my mini skeins, and I feel really good about the progress that I've made. I'm really happy with the things that I've done so far. And I just feel like this is an extension of my what did I call it last year? It's my stashing down journey of 2022. It's an extension of that to then clear out, like I've done all the big bits. Now it's all the little tiny things. And it's not like once those are gone, I'm just gonna be like a different knitter and like so free and doing whatever I want and accomplishing all these things. It's like I've been learning that along the way, in spite of having a stash, in spite of having these minis. I'm learning to feel freer and like my choices, and I've been making really good knitting and crochet decisions and learning more about myself, but it still is something that I want to do right now. And then I have a plan to use my other Fangirl Fibers Advent in May, and then that leaves me with an opening in June to kind of have buffer. I do have one more Advent, but I'm not sure that's gonna happen, and it's okay. It's all right. We will get there when we get there, but just thinking ahead, like knowing that that goal is a priority of mine makes me want to keep working on this. So I feel like 4 colors a week is not going to be a problem right now. I think the problem will arise when I start another project, my All of the Lights cardigan. So that yarn's not here yet. So for the meantime, I am going to be attempting 4 colors per week. Each section of this takes pretty much the same time because I'm using the same amount of yarn. Doesn't matter if it's fewer stitches in more rows or more stitches in fewer rows, it's still the same amount of yarn that I'm using. So it will, in a sense, take the same amount of time. And I'm also thinking about, since I'm starting to get to the point where I have a lot of stitches on this 24-inch cord, I think once I feel like I can no longer go on this 24-inch cord, I'm going to stop on this quadrant and start a new one. One reason is just to kind of keep things fun and fresh for this long-term project, but the other reason is I want to see how the colors are working up in the order that I've decided. How do they actually look when they're knitted? Can I then like set them next to this one and see if I'm still liking it? I feel like I won't want to make any changes if I've already knitted all 6 colors in a quadrant and then go to start another one. I'm like, oh, I wish I had made a swap earlier. So I am thinking about doing that and just keeping it fresh and fun. and like always going. So I'm very excited. Oh, you know what I just realized that I didn't share is that when I was talking about not wanting to seam, I think that another reason it's great that these are seamed together is it makes it a little bit more of a portable project rather than having like starting on a really small like circular kind of thing and having multiple colors going, which is what you'd have to do. You'd have to do basically intarsia and work in the round in purl because it's garter. So yeah, so many reasons not to work this all in one piece, but it also makes it a little more portable. When you start this out, it's so small. This was a perfect plain project that I worked on yesterday on my way home from Nashville. So I think it's really, really great. Anyway, if you can't tell, I am obsessed with it. So if you have a beautiful set of advent yarn or even your own leftovers that you want to really use up and really show off, I think that this is a wonderful pattern to do so. Really quickly, before we go into the question segment, I wanted to show you two beautiful yarns that I got this last weekend. So I went to Bliss Yarns in Brentwood, Tennessee, which is literally one exit down from Nashville. If you're ever visiting Nashville, go to Bliss Yarns. It is awesome. I'm a little biased because I worked there for many, many years and I just love the community and I love Deb, but it really is a great shop. And I've heard the same thing from other people, so I know it's not just me. So I got this wonderful yarn from Freckled Whimsy. I was looking for another self-striping yarn because I still want to try out my self-striping design, or at least just use that stitch pattern on other colors and see how it looks. And so this one really was looking really cool. There was a printout too of how the stripes would knit up, but it also says here on the label that this is a 10 stripe repeat. So it says keep on keeping on, and there were so many fun colors. And so my mom was with me and she saw that there was purple. It's not reading purple in the stripe as much, but there's purple in the skein. She's a huge purple fan, so I said, Mom, do you want this yarn? Do you want some socks? And I haven't knit her socks in forever. So she said yes. So I'm gonna make these for her, either give them to her when they're done. So if they're done for Mother's Day or her birthday in October or Christmas, she's not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. But now I have another fun yarn to work with. And they had lots of these Freckled Whimsy. I think Deb said they get new colors every season. So if you see something you like, if you like this, or when I have a vlog that I'm doing for my time in Nashville where I went to Bliss. If you see any of those colors, just give them a call at Bliss. They do ship. And then this was really exciting. While I was sitting there, a brand new shipment came in with an exclusive yarn to Bliss Yarns, and it is this. So their colors are this lovely like minty green, sometimes more of like a teal color, and brown. This one really looks like beautiful, kind of a robin's egg kind of thing. It's a little more minty than that robin's egg blue, but it's super pretty. And then a really fun bright coral. This is from Sweet Tea Yarns, and it is called Bliss Yarns. So it is an exclusive to them. They will be the only ones that have it. So if you like this, again, you can either look on their website or give them a call, and they do ship. So that was really fun. I need to look at my stash and make a note in my notebook. I meant to bring my notebook in here today, but I already forgot. So we're just gonna leave it in the other room. But I need to kind of go through and like look at my stash yarns, because while I'm not specifically focused on keeping zero stash this year on my full skeins, I do want to maintain all the hard work that I did last year. So I kind of need to make a plan of working through all of those things. Think Toaster just moved a little bit and you can like see his head. So do you care if we're not like perfectly straight for a minute? Because I always think it's fun to have him in the background. He just has his head on the pillow like this. So sweet. Let's get into questions. All right, first up, question number 1. Hi Natalie, I love your engaging podcast and all the beautiful items that you knit. Do you ever knit with straight needles? I tried circular knitting once, but I had a bad experience and decided it wasn't for me. Now a few years have passed and I'm feeling a bit braver. I was wondering if there is a simple, straightforward pattern I could knit to get my mojo happening again. It's autumn in the Southern Hemisphere, so it will soon be properly cozy knitting weather again. Thank you, Deborah from Melbourne, Australia. And I actually had another question here about circular knitting, so I'm going to answer the two together. The second question is from Jamie. I'm a beginner knitter. I haven't learned magic loop or knitting in the round, and I really want to create a colorwork top-down pullover one day. I recently bought the Everyday Raglan pattern from Sheep and Stitch because it included video tutorials for raglan, but I didn't read the details and the pattern is knitted bottom up and then joined by DPNs for the arm and the neck. Do you have a recommendation for a way to get comfortable knitting in the round? Should I start with fingerless mitts or a hat? Looking forward to learning more. Just learned how to make a swatch in the round today. Okay, so this is super exciting. We have two people who are kind of looking to up their knitting game, which I think is always amazing. And YouTube is always a great resource because there are so many tutorials out there. But I feel like with these questions, I always want to try to answer things that you just can't Google specifically, or you kind of need a direction to go in here. So let's start with Deborah's question about, do I ever knit with straight needles? No. Nope, and probably never again. So most of us, I would say, or maybe most of us that learned to knit in the last 15 years, probably learned to knit on straight needles. I don't know why, but that seemed to be like the way to teach people. I think because there were less options for really great, affordable circular needles. Because isn't there, I don't know, at least I see like a pretty natural progression, at least here in the States, that you might learn to knit on straight needles, but then you pretty quickly move over to circular needles, whether you're knitting flat or in the round, because they're much easier to manage because they have a smaller needle. So whenever you're knitting with circular needles, a pretty standard length, although those are 16 inches, so that's not right. Oh, here we go. Like, where are my projects? A pretty standard length for a needle shaft is 5 inches. There are differences in different brands, or if you have preferences for different things. And then when you go down to a 16-inch needle, actually this would be good to compare, it's going to get shorter, the needle shaft, because you just can't make that bend with a 5-inch needle. So it's going to go shorter, I don't know, maybe 3 inches. Let's see. So you can see right there, the metal, all metal silver one is the 16-inch, and then my 24-inch needles are on the top, the black wood. It's ebony wood. So that's pretty standard, but a straight needle is going to be something like 10 inches long. So they're very unwieldy, and they're also very heavy. When all your stitches shift from your left needle to your right needle, then the right needle weighs down heavy, and it's just uncomfortable. I also just don't think it's very ergonomic. That's not a scientific thing that I can prove, but it just doesn't seem to be very ergonomic. So I would say as quickly as you can, get away from straight needles and shift over to circular needles, unless your knitting style requires the straight needles, like you knit with your needle under your arm or balanced in some other way. Of course, there's always exceptions to that. So I always thought people learned to knit on straight needles, but when I was teaching my students, and I had an after-school knitting and crochet club, my last year I actually switched over to teaching them on circular needles, and I think it just set them up so much better for being able to enter into the knitting world where almost everything is done on circular needles and not straight needles. I know there's going to be people who love straight needles out there, and keep on keeping on if that's what you prefer. Okay, so you're wanting to try circular needles again. I would say that you are going to do a whole lot better this time because you now know exactly where the beginning of your row is. And I think that's something that can be confusing to a newer knitter is, wait, I've got both these needles and my fabric is on both of them, but where do I begin? As a non-beginner, you're not going to have that issue anymore. So I think you're going to be more than fine working on circular needles. I think it will be an adjustment in how you're holding it, but I think you will find it will be easier to manage in the long run. You can also do so many more things because with circular needles, you can now accommodate more stitches. You can work in the round, all kinds of things. So I would start knitting flat with your circular needles just to get comfortable with them. So what would you knit flat? I can't think of a specific pattern that would come to mind, but maybe you want to do something small like a dishcloth or something in garter stitch and just get started. I mean, I'm knitting on flat. Obviously mine's getting bigger than a dishcloth now, but on 24-inch circulars, 24-inch is my favorite because I feel like it's enough cord without being too much. You also want to get yourself a pair of circular needles that are not going to drive you crazy. And by that, I mean, get yourself good needles that have a good cord. And these metal, like braided cords that Lantern Moon, these are Lantern Moon or Chigu sells, or probably some others. I think Knitter's Pride now has one too. Are going to be so much better than the ones that really kink up. They're going to drive you nuts. Looking at you, Clover. Sorry, I love Clover products, but their cords kink up so badly, and I would find that very frustrating as a newer circular knitter. So find something easy to work on. It doesn't really matter what the pattern is. It honestly doesn't even matter if you're working in a pattern. You could just knit around and play with some stitches if you want, but just get yourself going on those circular needles. 24-inch I think would be great. And then as far as Jamie's question goes, this one is like a little bit different because it's more about knitting in the round. So you asked how to get comfortable knitting in the round and what should you start with. So I would suggest knitting a hat. A mitten or a sock or other things in the round are going to require a completely different technique than a hat does. So on a hat, as long as you start at the bottom, you're going to be able to use 16-inch circular needles. So shorter needles, we established that, but still the same technique knitting in the round. Knitting in the round, it seems like it's such a big, different thing than knitting flat. Honestly, it really isn't. Once you get set up, I almost think it's easier than knitting flat because you can just knit, 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 and go, go, go. All you have to worry about is slipping your stitch marker when you get to it that establishes where the beginning and end of the round is. So I think it's just a setup that may be intimidating, but once you get going, I promise you, it's going to be so similar to knitting flat that you're going to feel really, really confident about it. So I think a hat's a good way to go. You can start on the 16-inch circulars. Then when you get to the top of the hat, not the way this one's knit, but when you get to the top of the hat and you need to decrease your stitches, that's where you can add in that other skill of knitting in small circumferences in the round. So when you do decreases on the crown, you'll probably be able to manage the first few decreases on that same 16-inch needle. But then your stitches will get fewer and fewer and they will no longer fit around your 16-inch needle. So you need to switch. You can switch to double pointed needles. You could switch to magic loop. You could switch to two circular needles. I mean, there's a lot of techniques that you can use and you can practice that on the hat. You said that's part of the sweater that you want to make, so practice it on the hat first before going into the sweater. And I think that will help you become more comfortable with all of those techniques on something that's a little bit more seamless, a little bit like lower stakes, and we'll still get all those techniques in. I will say I don't know the everyday raglan pattern, but I feel like maybe it would be better for your first sweater to do a top-down raglan, because when you're joining in all of those different things, it is a lot. I've done that on a sweater only one time and as an experienced knitter, and I found it tedious. So I would think that maybe you want to look for possibly a different raglan sweater to start, that you can start from the top down, that will not be so many different pieces. You'll still, well, I guess if it's a cardigan, is it a sweater or a cardigan? If it's a cardigan, you'd be knitting it flat anyway, but a sweater, a pullover, you'd be knitting in the round. But it won't have all of those little finicky things that you need to do, and you'll be able to try it on. Bottom-up sweaters you can try on, but it's a little harder to gauge exactly where you need to be placing it on your body until you have that experience of knitting an initial sweater. So those are my thoughts. If it were me, I would do hat, then I would do top-down raglan, and then I would go back to this raglan. Oh, sorry, I have to keep my phone on noise because I'm waiting for a call. And I have gotten like 17 spam calls today. It's so annoying. Okay. that was just the first question. Let's see if we can make up a little time on the next ones. Good questions though, I love answering these. Okay, next question is from Barbara. Have you ever considered making a scrappy Musselburgh hat? Maybe using your magic knot yarn ball. Ooh, that's a really good question. I feel like a scrappy Musselburgh hat would be very, very cute. I've seen people do stripy ones. I've seen people do scrappy ones. I've seen people where they've done one half of the hat in a solid color, the other half in like stripy colors so that you can kind of pick your mood, which is really fun. I don't think that a scrappy Musselburgh hat is really my style. Even though I would love knitting it, I started learning better to make things that I will actually wear and saving the fun colors and scrappy things for accessories. That's why I'm so into this blanket right now, because it's lots of fun colors, but I knew I wouldn't use those colors in a shawl. Like if I made it, I would enjoy making it, but then I wouldn't use it, and I want to use my knits. That's a priority for me right now. So I probably won't make a scrappy Musselburgh hat just because it's not my style. But I do think it would be very, very cute and such a fun way to use leftovers and like little bits, because you wouldn't have to make all the stripes the same. Or you can make it more cohesive by doing maybe a solid color stripe in between and then changing the colors. I mean, there's so many fun things you can do with it. So you know what? I'm gonna take it back and say that I probably wouldn't make a fully scrappy Musselburgh where the scraps are just random and the whole thing is stripy. But would I maybe make a Musselburgh hat where I'm using up a like very, what's it called? I'm trying to think of the word where you like really go through something, a curated palette of colors in a specific order that I like together, that look good together, that work for me, and then maybe the other side is solid. Would I maybe do that? Yes, I would probably do that. So yeah, I'll never say never on that because it is a really cute idea, but I think there's so many in the realm of scrappiness, there's so many ways you can do it. You can make it all like wild colors and you can make it all very your own palette. So you know what? I might do that in the future and I really love that idea. I love being able to use up yarn. Okay, question number 3 is from Chris. I've never been to a fiber show and I really want to go to Rhinebeck this year and I'm confused by the website. Is it too early to start planning? Is it practical to stay in New York City or should we spend some time in New York City and plan on staying closer to Rhinebeck during the show? And tickets to classes and LOL help. Okay, I know Rhinebeck is so confusing and I've been now to Rhinebeck twice. And I feel like I learned a little bit each time that I went, so I am so happy to help. So first off, I would say I have 2 videos on my past 2 Rhinebecks, and I think that those would be helpful in getting a sense of what is all there at the festival. The first year in 2021 when I went to Rhinebeck, I did not stay there. I stayed here in my home in New York City in Manhattan, and I took the train in every single day. Because of that, I can say that I definitely don't recommend doing that. I think if you're just going for one day, it's not a problem. If you want to be there for multiple days, I would say stay a few days in New York City and then go up to Rhinebeck and stay up there. It is not too early to start planning. In fact, you need to get a hotel or an Airbnb now. You are not going to be able to find something if you wait too close to the event, unfortunately, or you're going to be farther away. The second year I went to Rhinebeck, I did stay up there. And so I actually was able to go to more of the events and like feel more involved and everything. And it was really, really great. But you'll also see a few things that happen in that video that we didn't anticipate, like how horrible the traffic is on that Saturday after Rhinebeck, trying to get back across the river to where our hotel is. So because of that, we've adapted a few things that we're going to do for this next year. So when I talk about Rhinebeck, and I think most people when they talk about Rhinebeck, they're not just talking about actual Rhinebeck, which is the New York Sheep and Wool Festival that happens on Saturday and Sunday. They're also talking about the other adjacent events that go along with it and then just being there. So I think it's a really confusing term, but I use it too. Rhinebeck is actually the location. Rhinebeck is a city in New York. It's called Rhinebeck, New York. And The actual event is called the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. So when you're looking for a website, you need to look for New York Sheep and Wool Festival. The tickets are probably not on sale yet, but for the actual Sheep and Wool Festival on Saturday and Sunday, you can get your tickets in advance, and I think it saves you a little money, but at least the past 2 years, it hasn't been an issue of like, you need to be there when the ticket drops to like get one. Like you can get one, you know, at your leisure. I say with caution because you never know what's going to happen. So that's the main event, Saturday, Sunday at the fairgrounds in Rhinebeck. All of the other events are not in Rhinebeck. They're either across the Hudson River, which is, it's not that far, but like also can be problematic with traffic and things. And because to cross the river, you need to hit certain bridges, and those are not like every single street, right? So there's an event in, and I'm not going to remember this exactly right, but I know there's one in Kingston, and then there's one in Saugerties. So you will see people stay in Kingston and in Saugerties if they can't get a spot in Rhinebeck, because Rhinebeck is a smaller town. So we're actually staying in Kingston in an Airbnb. It is going to be a fraction of the cost of the hotel that we stayed at last year for twice as many days and has so many more amenities. So for us, we've decided that Airbnb is the way to go. We have 3 couples and it's going to be so much fun. We're very excited for it. So we're staying in Kingston, which means we're on, here's the Hudson River, here's Kingston, and here's Rhinebeck. This is not perfectly exact, but Kingston's on the west side and Rhinebeck is on the east side. So because we know now that there's like issues with traffic, our idea is to, at least on that Saturday, stay in the Rhinebeck area, get dinner there before crossing the river to go home to Kingston, which is like where a lot of people stay. So there's issues with the traffic there. The other area is Saugerties, and Saugerties is also like a cute little town. I think, oh my gosh, hopefully I'm saying this right. I think Saugerties is where the Perfect Blend yarn store, oh my gosh, I should have looked this up first. We're just gonna look this up together. Perfect Blend. Yes, Saugerties. So in Saugerties is where the Perfect Blend yarn shop is, and they are so cute. You definitely want to go visit that. All of these things are within like 20-30 minutes of each other. So if you have a car, which you need a car when you're up there, you're going to be fine. There is not Uber as far as I know. There is Lyft, but I almost got stuck several times because I could try to call a Lyft, but no Lyfts were available. And so I had to have friends drive me around. So this is why I would not say going up and back and forth with the train is a good idea. It's really too much. Okay, so in Saugerties is where Cakepalooza is. So there's 3 side events that I'm aware of. There's Indie Untangled, there's Cakepalooza, and there's Wool and Folk. Wool and Folk is the newest, Indie Untangled has been around the longest, Cakepalooza is somewhere in the middle. So actually Cakepalooza and Wool and Folk may be both just as new. But in my brain, when I learned about them, that's the order. So I've been to all 3. They're all great. They're all different. I actually found the shopping better at those 3 events than at actual New York Sheep and Wool Festival. The items that I was looking for were there, not at the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, but everyone will be a little bit different on that. So the Rhinebeck New York Sheep and Wool Festival Saturday, Sunday stuff, those tickets are cheap. They're like $13. They're easy to get. It gets you into the fairgrounds. You can shop. You can go on the hill. You can purchase food. The food is a separate purchase, but like you have access to all of those things. So that's a very affordable thing to go to. The other events, those are all individually ticketed, and in order to know what is going on with them, I would just recommend following each of those accounts on Instagram. So follow Indie Untangled, follow Cake Yarn, I think it is, or Cakepalooza, follow Wool and Folk, because they are all run by different people. You can't get tickets for them together. You must, unless a yarn shop has a connection. I don't know if I'm right about that. Maybe not. But they're individual events, so you're gonna have to do your due diligence to follow everything, to see when the tickets are dropping, to be there right when the tickets drop, because they will sell out fast if they're time slots like Kickapalooza and Indie Untangled. If you want a specific time slot, if you want to schedule your day, like I go to Indie Untangled from 10 to noon, I go to Cake from noon to 2, and then I go to Woolen Folk, you're going to have to plan that. And I know it sounds like a lot, it is a lot, but if you really want to be there and experience all of those events, then you're gonna have to work hard to figure it out. I will do my best to share as much as I can when those things come up for sale, because I'm gonna be doing the same. I'm gonna be scrambling to figure it all out. It is confusing, it is confusing. Okay, so I think that's where I'm gonna stop on that, because that was a lot of info, but it's fun, it's worth it. It's a lot, but I promise you, you will be happy. I think you'll be happy with yourself if you get involved in as many of the events as you can possibly do. Okay, let's move on. We have another two-parter because I got two similar questions here. So the first one is from Julianne. Which yarn cozy would you say holds the yarn cake better, the knit or crochet version? And then Shannon asked, I have been on a yarn cozy light and mini kick lately. I'm wondering, do you block your yarn cozies or use them right off the needles? Thanks for the informative and also highly entertaining podcast. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so we're answering questions about yarn cozies. So the yarn cozy is my pattern. I have a crochet version. Actually, there's two different crocheted versions. This is the ribbed version, and you can see my yarn is inside of here. So it holds stuff to the very end, mostly because of friction at the very end here. Not like I'm rubbing things together, but just friction. And then this is one of the knitted versions, the cabled one. There's several different versions. And I would say that they between the knit and the crochet, I think they hold them pretty equally. I haven't noticed a major difference between either one. So I would just say the choice of which to make would be between, do you want to knit or crochet? What do you like the look of more? And then also, how much yarn do you have? Because the crochet versions take a little more yarn than the knitted versions do. So if you're trying to decide, maybe those factors will help you make your decision. And then as far as blocking, I don't block my yarn cozies. I don't block them because they don't really need it. And I also don't block them because I don't want them to stretch too much. I don't really know if that would be a problem. I've never blocked them, so I've never tried. But I just bind them off and then throw them into a drawer and then use them as I see fit. I usually try to kind of switch up the ones I'm using so I can use different colors and things like that. So hopefully that helps with your yarn cozy making. Okay, last question here. This one is from Bailey. What do you do with the knits that you no longer use or wear? Do you bring them to a thrift store? I feel like I'm too attached to my knits to give them to Goodwill or Salvation Army, but I don't know anyone with my same size and style to gift them to. Oh, this is a tricky question. Okay, so 4 or 5 years ago, I had not ever let go of a single thing that I had made. If you're newer in your knitting and crochet journey, you're probably not to the point yet where it even feels possible to let go of something that you have put so many hours into, and I totally understand. If you are somebody like Bailey or like me who has started to get to the point where you're like, man, I just really don't use X, this sweater, this shawl, this hat anymore. It doesn't fit my style anymore. It doesn't fit me anymore. I just never liked it. Like, whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. But you're looking to start that process of letting go. And I say process because literally, I think it is like breaking up. Like, it's not clean. You have to start it. And I promise you, it gets easier. In that case, it's not like breaking up with people. That never gets easier. But it does get easier to let go of your handmade items. So when I first started letting go of things, I was less inclined to donate them anonymously. So donating to Salvation Army or Goodwill, I think, is a great option. There are other people who will see it and be excited about it. They may recognize it as a handmade. I see a lot, people on Instagram will say, oh my God, I rescued this hand knit sweater from Goodwill. I can't believe the family got rid of it. But maybe consider that the knitter got rid of it. It is possible. Maybe they used it, they were happy with when they used it, now it no longer fits their style or their needs. They decided to donate it, and like, you're giving it a new life by, I guess, rescuing it, but I wouldn't look at it as such a negative thing that it was there in the first place. I think this is okay. And sure, if you donate it to a bigger like organization, there is a chance that somebody who's not a knitter will get that thing, and then maybe they'll wash it and maybe it will get ruined, but you know what? That's not on you. Or at least I don't feel like that's on me. I feel like when I have made something, I have already gotten all of the use out of it that I'm going to get. If I am no longer wearing it, it is just taking up space in my drawer, and I don't want that to happen anymore. So if I can't find somebody that I know, that is my first preference, not because I like want to see them wearing it, but because I think like you too, Bailey, like you want it to be used. You know how much work it was and you want it to be loved and used and enjoyed, but I don't know if that's really our responsibility at that point. I think that if you're ready to let it go, it's okay to let it go. If you don't know anybody that wants it, I think it's okay to take it to a Goodwill or a Salvation Army, and just think about maybe the joy that you're gonna bring to somebody's life with that item. They're getting something that they may not even know is so special and so custom and so handmade, and that's really, really exciting. So work on that. I know it's not easy. It's kind of a mindset thing. With my items, I am probably going to do another purge here soon. So I have given things to friends. I have posted things online, either on Instagram or in the Love and Stitches membership, and asked if anybody would want the item, you know, list the size, all of those things. You could also maybe reach out to a local shelter or another organization, but just keep in mind that it's not on others to accept our donations. They may have specific requirements that they need certain materials or certain items certain time of year, or they need to be washable, etc. And just prepare yourself to not feel like disappointment if that is the situation that occurs, and like understand where they are coming from. So it is hard to find a place to donate things to. It would be nice if we were just all neighbors and we could just have a shared closet and be like, all right, I'm not wearing this anymore, trade. What do you have in your closet? And we could like switch them, but that's just not always the case. So I really just want you to think, if you're ready to get rid of them, please don't let a hope for the sweater hold you back from like releasing that and like getting the space in your drawer, getting the space in your closet, and just not having to look at it and feel guilty every time you see it sitting in your space. If you do have a question for me, make sure to leave it down below, but put #question at the beginning of your comment so that I can look for your question and answer it next week. All right, I have some news to share. So first off, the newest video is planning my spring knits. So I sat down a couple weekends ago, got out my notebook, looked at my yarn, looked at my projects, looked at my Ravelry queue, and I really got clear on what I want to work on over these next few months. So I kind of did like a big general list of like, in a perfect world, I would make all of these projects. And then I actually looked at March and looked at April and made those plans. That's as far as I went. I feel like I can't go too far ahead in detail. I need to kind of outline, and then every single month I really look and plan out maybe a couple of projects. And then each week I even look again and I'm like, okay, what's realistic for this week? So now I've got a really nice plan, and I walk you through everything and all of the things I have thinking about and coming up with for spring. So you can see that in that video. I'll have it linked down below. Coming up next week is going to be another vlog. This one is going to be about my time in Nashville when I went to visit my parents. So lots of knitting on the Citrine Light sweater, going around Nashville with my mom is in it quite a bit. Oh, toaster being so loud. My mom is in it. My parents' dog is in it. My dad is like barely in it. But it should be a really, really fun one. I would just say if you haven't watched any of our vlogs yet, they seem to get the best feedback on them, that people are just really, really enjoying them. But I think they are watched less because they're labeled as vlogs, but they actually still have quite a lot of knitting in them. So if you didn't see the Austin vlog yet, there are 4 yarn store tours in that video, and I think that if you missed it, you are missing out because it's a really, really fun one. So don't let the vlogs pass you up. If you're a podcast watcher, I think you will enjoy the vlogs as well. Okay, events. The Knit for Food Knit-a-thon is coming up this Sunday, March 26th. So I have set up a page if you would like to donate to Knit for Food, which supports 4 different organizations that donate money, give food for food insecurity. All the information is on the page. I know one of them is Meals on Wheels. What are the other ones? Hold on. Let me see real quick. I should have looked this up. Knit for Food. It's a knit-a-thon though, which means I'm going to be knitting for, or attempting to knit for 12 hours on Sunday. It's going to be very, very fun. Okay, this is pulling up right now. What? Why do I have to select all the images with the bus? Why can't I just go to the page? Okay, here we go. So the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon donates to Feeding America, World Central Kitchen, No Kid Hungry, and Meals on Wheels. So I have set up a page where we are raising money as Love and Stitches, and it goes towards the knit-a-thon and everything like that. But if you would like to, you can set up your own page, and for everyone who raises $100 or more, you get a Zoom link and you get to come to all of the Zoom events that are happening on Sunday. So you can do that, or you can donate into our group. Now, what I'm going to be doing is for everyone that donates under the Love and Stitches group, you're going to be entered to win a prize. And on that day, I am going to be knitting on yarn cozies. So like these little guys, I don't know which pattern I'm going to do yet. I'll probably ask on Instagram what yarns you think I should use and everything like that. So pay attention to my Instagram on Sunday because I'm going to be putting lots of stuff in stories about Knit for Food, and you can participate in any capacity. Even if you're not able to raise money, maybe you can share and you can like be a part of picking out the yarn cozies that I'm going to make. But for everyone who does donate on my page, you will have the chance to win one of the cozies that I'm going to make on that day. I am also going to have an Instagram live. Let me see, what time did I decide that would be? I'm going to have an Instagram live at noon Eastern time, so 12 p.m. Eastern time for anyone. So you can just come and join no matter what. I'll talk a little bit about the knit-a-thon, I'll work on my yarn cozy, and we'll just chat and hang out. And then our Love and Stitches members, we are going to have a Zoom on that day, and we are also going to be watching Pride and Prejudice together because that is our book that we read in March. So it's going to be really, really fun. And then if you are fundraising individually for Knit for Food, you're gonna see me on those Zooms. I am going to be participating in a game night at 8:45, so hopefully I will be chipper, but I'm gonna be participating in a game night, so I will see you there. It's gonna be very, very fun. So that's this Sunday, March 26th. The other thing is that the Love and Stitches membership is opening up at the beginning of April. It will open on Tuesday, April 4th. I will link the page to the membership down below. The membership is something that is so hard to explain how great it is because there's just so many things that are in it. There's the Discord community, there are the member-led Zooms, there are the events that we have that I host, there are the make-alongs that we do. I have a really fun one coming up for this next period of time. But I do have a couple changes that I've made since last week when I announced that the membership was opening, that if you're interested in the membership, you're really going to want to make sure that you hear these. The first is that we are for the first time going to, oh my gosh, what I just forgot about the word that I wanted to use. We are going to restrict. That's not the word I wanted to use, but we are going to, oh my gosh, why can't I think of this word? Limit. Oh my gosh, limit. We're going to limit. I kept wanting to say eliminate. We're going to limit the number of new members that we are taking in for this term. So normally we're able to accommodate as many people as want to sign up, but our membership is growing and it is getting quite big, and we still want to maintain that feeling of a small community. And if we keep growing at the same rate, it will be a challenge. So we currently have about 436 members. Not about, that's exactly how many we have. And all of our members have the option to either renew for our next period of time or not. So that number will change a little bit, but we've also decided that we will not be able to take any more than 100 new members. So that should land us somewhere around 500 people for the next few months, which I think is very reasonable for us, and we can still maintain everything that we're doing and still have that small community of people. I know you're like, wait, 500 is so many people, but within the membership, we do have all these different pockets of things that we do. Like we have a book club, we have like 20 Zooms a week that are available, and you find your people within those things. So I think this is a really, really good number. So that being said, if you really want to join the Love and Stitches membership, I would recommend getting on the waitlist. The waitlist people are going to be able to have first access to sign up. And if we fill up with that waitlist, then that's going to be it for this next term. It was a really hard choice to make, but I think it's going to be the best one for the community as a whole. So just look at all the information down below. And if you're really wanting to join the membership, just make sure that you're signing up on that first day. Most of the time I tell people like you're fine to sign up anywhere from Tuesday to Friday. So I just want to be very clear that as soon as we fill up to 100 people, 100 new members, we are going to close it and it will no longer be open. So if it's important to you, just make sure you're there on that wait list or there on that first day. The one other thing that's a big change is that we are going to be switching from 3-month quarters to 4-month terms. So instead of signing up for a 3-month period, you'll sign up for a 4-month period of the membership. And we want to do this because every time we bring in new members, we reset a lot of things. We reset our Zoom schedule, we reset our calendars, we reset our make along, we just make a lot of changes. And having that happen just one less time per year is going to be impactful on helping us to really like plan things and to bond and to stay into like the same group for as long as possible while still opening up 3 times a year for everyone to join in. So it's not really a huge change, except that when you sign up, if you're part of the membership or if you continue to be a part of the membership, you just have to worry about it one less time every single year. And I think this is going to be a really positive change. So if you're interested in the membership at all, look at the site down below. It will help you to make a decision if the membership is going to be a good fit for you. All right, last thing is the chapters. I wanted to come back to that. So for the podcast now, we are putting chapters in. So that means every single segment that I talk about, you're going to find on the player bar. You can also scroll down into the description box and see it all listed. It's going to be at the very bottom. And then even below that, you're going to see kind of like images and sections. So we are manually putting these in. It was something that was requested, and I think it was such a brilliant idea. So thank you to the person who suggested that, or the multiple people that suggested that. So when you are watching the podcast, if you are like, okay, I'm like done hearing about this sweater, let me go on to the next thing, you can easily do that. Or if you are like, I already know everything about knitting, I'm not going to listen to the questions, I don't know, whatever, however your pace is to listen to things, you're able to move around within the podcast. Also, if you ever wanted to, let's say you like really wanted to see the process of this blanket from beginning to end, but you didn't want to watch all the podcasts. Let's say you find me when the blanket's finished and you just want to see that blanket. You could come back through multiple podcasts and just find Quadrophenia on this podcast and Quadrophenia on this podcast and Quadrophenia on this podcast. That could be a really fun way to watch. If you're ever looking for the answer to a question, I don't know. I think it's just going to be really nice if you watch a podcast in parts and you want to end at like a specific part. You can see like, okay, there's 5 minutes left in this section, then I'll stop and like pick it back up tomorrow, whatever. I don't know. So I just wanted to draw your attention to those so that you could use them. It's a great feature, and we want to make the podcast a fun and easy watch. So this whole last week, I have been in Nashville. The day after I recorded the podcast last week, I flew out and then I got back in yesterday, and here I am recording the podcast today. So it's kind of funny because it doesn't really look like anything significant happened on the screen, but for me, I am like still feeling like I'm getting back into the routine of things after being gone for 7 days? Yeah, almost 7 days, and all of the other things that are going on. So I feel a little like, oof, I don't know, maybe you can tell. I feel like it's so fun to watch, like to be on camera in different stages of life, because you can see like, wow, this was going on then. And anyway, we're getting too deep. Let's talk about what's happened in the last week. So last Wednesday, I flew out to Nashville in the morning, and I went to Nashville because my brother is getting married in April, and his future wife, his fiance, is going to be my sister-in-law soon, and she was having a bridal shower. And so I wanted to go to the bridal shower. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go because it was kind of a last-minute planned shower, but I ended up finding really affordable flights to Nashville, which is not always the case. It's kind of an expensive place to fly. And my mom was like, well, if you can fly on a Wednesday to a Tuesday, you can come out here for a week, you can work here, we can hang out, we can go dress shopping, we can go to the shower. It will be so much fun. So that's what I did. So I flew out on Wednesday, and then I spent several days that I was there in kind of my normal routine, working and the like. But I did find it was very time saving that I wasn't having to cook. I don't really cook, but I do help prep meals and like clean meals. Clean, take toaster out. None of those things were part of my day there. My mom did like all of that, which was amazing. And I had all this time to knit and to take walks, and it was just like a lovely time. So you're gonna see that in the upcoming vlog, all of the things that went on there. On Friday, I went to Bliss Yarns. I took the day off and I went to Bliss and got to hang out for several hours and got to meet some lovely people. It was so nice to meet all of you. I remember meeting Jessica and Jeanette, and then you had another friend that I don't think I got their name, but it was so nice to meet you and just to hang out with all of the usual people that are at Bliss. It was spring break, so a lot of people that were teachers were there hanging out during the day, which was so lovely. I took a picture while I was there, just like outside. I had my mom take a picture of me, so you can see that here. Then after that, my mom and I went to do some shopping. She was looking for a dress for the wedding, and so I kind of helped her try to pick out a dress. We weren't successful, but at least it was a start. And we just had a fun day shopping. And then we found this amazing mural. So you can see here, my mom and I got a picture on the mural. If you've ever seen any like Nashville accounts, you'll see people take pictures in front of these wings that are painted on the side of a building. So this swing is the same artist, but it's kind of a hidden gem because you wouldn't just see it like from the street. So we looked it up, we happened to be very close to it, and then we just went over, took some pictures, and got some really cute ones. So I'm excited to use one of the photos that we took, my mom took of me actually, as next week's video cover. So you'll see it then. On Saturday was the shower. So the entire purpose of me coming out originally was for the shower. I took a lot of photos of the decor. It's just super beautiful. It was at one of my future sister-in-laws. It was at her friend's house. She lived just down the street from them. So she decorated it so beautifully. We had like little snacks and cake and presents, and it was great. It was a very nice shower. Not a ton of people, so it was small. We didn't do any like silly games, which was nice. We just hung out and talked. So it was really cool to get to I've never lived in the same city as my future sister-in-law, so it was nice to get to know her and her friends and enjoy that time, and also spend a little more time with my mom. We did take a picture together. So in this picture, my future sister-in-law Mary is in the middle. Then you can also see my mom, and then of course I'm in the picture, and I'm wearing my seaside dress that I knit last year and wore at Rhinebeck. And so as many opportunities as I can to wear this dress because it's so comfortable, it's so cute, and it's probably the dressiest thing that I own right now. On Sunday, my mom and I went to my brother's house, also future sister-in-law's house, and hung out with them. We played cards, we got dinner, and it was a really, really great time. So I just really enjoyed the weekend with them. I wasn't vlogging then. I wasn't really on Instagram as much. I just hung out, knit, and enjoyed time with family, and it was really, really nice. And then on Tuesday, I came back home to Kent and Toaster. Toaster has gotten out of his blanket, and he is lounging now. Why does the camera do that? It like wiggles and wobbles. But yeah, so Kent stayed here with Toaster so that I could go to the bridal shower and hang out with my family, which was very, very nice of him. Okay, I have been off my reading routine and watching routine, honestly, but I have still been reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I looked up how to say it, but now I can't remember if it was Maas or Maas. Wow, A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I don't know if I like it. I know that so many people love these books, are obsessed with them. And somebody did tell me they were a little slow to start. So that's keeping me on reading this book. It's not that I don't like it, it's just I'm not captured by it. I find that in books that I really, really like, I'm excited to go to bed and read them, and excited to get up in the morning and read them. And this one I'm just kind of all right, I don't know, and I hate that because I really want to be able to enjoy the world and understand the world. It's not really picking up, and I'm 30% of the way through. So let me know if I should keep going, if it picks up more, because right now it just doesn't really make sense, the entire premise of it. Not that I don't understand it as I'm reading it, it doesn't make sense that would happen. And I feel that's for me, that's a mental block of this isn't realistic. So I don't want to read about it. I don't know. It's weird. But I hate that I don't love it. I want to love it. I want to be a part of this. And so I'm going to keep trying. But if I go another week and I'm not done with the book because I'm not enjoying it, then I'm probably going to call it quits on A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm sorry. We can't all love everything. As far as what I've been watching, when I was at my parents' house, they have a very regimented TV schedule, and they're watching 5 different shows, but none of which I'm watching. So no, that's not true. We did watch the first episode of Ted Lasso together, but everything else they're in season 3. And so I can't just jump in and watch with them. So we started a new show that we saw advertised on TLC called Extreme Sisters, and it was a wild show. And if you like reality shows and drama, you will love this show. It's about sets of sisters. Most of them are twins. Some of them are not, but most of them are twins that are so attached to each other that it kind of causes all these issues in their lives. So it was very interesting and very unique, and we all very much enjoyed the show. I think we watched 9 episodes of it or something over the time that I was there, which was very, very fun. Other than that, I watched a ton of HGTV with my mom, which I love doing. Okay, let's talk about my March intentions to wrap things up. So I have a personal goal, a business goal, and a yarny goal for the month of March. And March has been a slow month, I think, on my progress. I mean, maybe not. Maybe when I come to review it each week, I think that helps me realize that like there are things that I'm moving like in the right direction on, and I need to maybe give myself a little more credit. So let's start with the personal goal. So this one for March is just, it's very loose, which is probably why it hasn't been going so moving forward so fast, but I want to learn to do my makeup. And you probably noticed that I have some eyeshadow on today. And so I was determined today, I haven't done what I really want to do, which is like sit down, find a tutorial of somebody that I like the style of their makeup, see what items they are using on their face, and then go buy them and then practice. That's what I really wanted to do. And it just hasn't been, like, my mental energy has been taken up by other things. And I just haven't felt that there's been time for me to do that yet. This weekend coming up though, we really don't have anything going on. So it's a great possibility that I could at least get started on that, finding the person that I really want to watch the tutorials of. But today I told myself I am going to put on a little extra makeup for the podcast. And my friend gave me these last week. They're like little eyeshadow sticks, or maybe they're eyeliner. It just says jewel stick, creamy eyeshadow stick. And so today I was like, okay, when I was putting my makeup on this morning, I was like, we're gonna put on the eyeshadow, we're gonna put on the eyeshadow, we're gonna put on the eyeshadow. And then what did I do? I went through my routine I've had for years, and I put on my mascara before I put on the eyeshadow, and I was like, oh, dang it. I missed my eyeshadow opportunity. But I was not to be deterred. And before I started podcasting, I decided my eyeshadow or my mascara was set so I could put on the eyeshadow without like totally messing up my eyelashes. So I have on some white eyeshadow. It is definitely much more white than I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be like, it says solid white on here, which I definitely didn't read until just a moment ago. That would have been helpful if I'd read it. But I thought it was gonna be shimmery. I guess my other colors are shimmery, so I just assumed the white would be the same. No, it's just white. I feel very much like Xenon or like Gen Z kind of here. But it's kind of fun. I mean, I don't know if white is the right color for the entire eyelid or not, but we'll continue to play with things. I tried something. That's step one, right? So we'll consider that forward progress for the week. Okay, as far as my business goal, I am attempting to retry my design goal that I had in February in a different construction. So my goal for this past week, I have a goal for each week basically. And instead of saying I need to work on it in this amount of time, I'm looking at that week, looking at what I have going on, looking at the goal that I want to have, and then deciding how much time it's going to take, which more naturally is fitting the way that I plan my week for other business tasks. So this is going well so far. So my goal this week was to brainstorm all of the yarn cozy ideas that I have, and then decide on a priority order in order to design them. So even though I already have several versions of the yarn cozies, I have so many more in my head, and you've been asking for so many more, and I've been wanting to do them for 2 years and nothing has happened. I guess I did the crochet one last year. But yeah, it's been a while since the first one came out, and I have so many ideas. So I have a page full in my notebook of all of the different kinds of cozies that I have been brainstorming, but then I knew I couldn't just start on them all at once. I needed to prioritize. So I picked 3 to be the top ones so that I can get started on the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then go from there. So I decided my first priority would be the 20 and 50 gram crochet yarn cozies. So for the knitted version of the yarn cozy, I already have, this is the 100 gram version, then I have a 50 gram and a 20 gram one, but there's not that for the crochet. So I am going to work through the crochet version of that first. I've decided that's my priority. I really want to do a crochet or a cozy along in May. So I'm gonna be looking at this week if that will be possible to get it tested by that date, because it's coming up really fast. So I don't know if it will quite be able to be tested and ready by the along, but I think we can still have an along without having all the versions of the Crochet Cozy done. We can just do another one next year. It'll be totally fine. So feeling confident and good about my business intention this month. And then my last one is to my yarny one, which is to begin my All of the Lights cardigan. And no progress has been made on that because I don't have the yarn yet. And that's not anyone's fault but my own, because I just was trying to figure out which one to use, and then I ordered it last week. So now I'm just waiting for it to be dyed and to get here, and then I will be able to swatch and begin and all of that stuff. But this is all part of a long-term project process, right? It just takes time to do all of those things, and that's okay. I did start a group message with some of my other friends who are Love and Stitches members that are working on this cardigan. I think we have 5 or 6 people in there now. So I'm seeing them work on their All of the Lights cardigan. So I now have built up another part of the community that I know is going to be kind of keeping me accountable on this cardigan. So that feels really, really good. So I guess there's a teensy little bit of progress in that area. All right, y'all, that is everything. Thanks as always for sticking with me throughout these long podcast episodes. My dad this week was asking me all kinds of questions about like what I do, because my parents don't fully understand. They don't watch it. It's not their, like, I don't know, it's not their content. They're not really on YouTube or anything. And he was like, people actually watch something that's an hour long? And I'm like, yeah, lately they've been like 1.5 hours to 2 hours long. So yeah, some people do watch. So if you watched this long, thank you for being here. You're the best, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.